James Buchanan, A Lasting Legacy. Few men in history have achieved the enduring fame of James Buchanan. Around the world, but most importantly in Latin America, Buchanan is a household name and always uttered in the anticipation of something good. James Buchanan was born in 1849 in Brockville, Western Canada, to immigrants from Scotland. A year later, the family returned to Scotland and from there to Northern Ireland. At the tender age of 14, Buchanan started working for the steamship company W.M. Sloane & Co. This was the great era of the shipping trade, with new markets opening up worldwide. During the American Civil War, Sloane's shipped goods to and from the United States, providing great training for this young, ambitious man who would later become a famed exporter. In 1868, he joined his brother in the grain and seed merchant business. This was where he first laid hands on the essential ingredient of the product that was to prove his fortune: barley. 10 years later, now 30 years old, Buchanan moved to London and became a sales agent for the famous whiskey firm of Charles McKinley, where he learned the Scotch business from the ground up. With a love of the liquid, along with an entrepreneurial spirit, in 1884 he decided to set up in business for himself as a Scotch whiskey merchant. This was a fortuitous time, as Scotch had now become the leading spirit enjoyed by the middle and upper classes, brandy having been wiped out by the phylloxera insect that had decimated the French vineyards. Buchanan realized there was a huge potential market for whiskey, but many of the brands sold were too strong in flavor. He set out to create a blend that was lighter, smoother, and more refined. He sought to use only the most mature Scotch whiskies that had aged in casks for a minimum of 12 years. After much effort, he perfected such a liquid, and he named it, modestly, the Buchanan Blend.
I made up my mind to find a blend sufficiently light and old to please the palate. This I was able to do and made rapid headway. I need hardly say that I was on the quest for business day and night, getting introductions and getting to know people wherever I could.
Always the salesman he had started out as, within 1 year he had his first major breakthrough. He secured the contract to supply Buchanan's blend to the British government in the Houses of Parliament. And, ever the smart marketer, to highlight these credentials, the bottle label was redesigned to note, "As specially selected for the House of Commons," with a reproduction of the contract on the back. He then turned this success into securing major accounts with a hotel chain and United Music Halls company, thus beginning a long association with popular music. With success achieved at home, and now married to his wife Annie, Buchanan then set his eyes on the rest of the world. By 1887, James Buchanan & Co. was exporting its products to a number of international markets through London agents. And then in 1895, he established his own export department. Keen to see the export potential for himself, Buchanan made a number of pioneering tours abroad to Europe, Canada, United States, and South America. Another reason for these trips was to indulge his love of horses and horse racing, something that he especially loved in Latin America. With a worldwide market to supply, he realized he needed to ensure a steady flow of Scotch whiskies with which to create his blends. So, in 1897, he began construction of Glentarker's distillery in Speyside, Scotland. He later licensed the Dalwhinnie distillery, and to this present day it is still a part of all the Buchanan's blends. A man with an empire needs a worldwide headquarters. So in 1898, Buchanan bought the Black Swan distillery in Holborn, London. He spared no expense in renovating the extensive property, creating a magnificent and imposing structure for his business, complete with its own bottling hall. It was from here that the famous horse-drawn drays delivered throughout London. The immaculately attired coachman and pairs of handsome black and white horses soon became a famed sight in London. That same year, the marketing genius won his biggest success to date, not one, but 2 royal warrants, from Her Majesty Queen Victoria and her son the Prince of Wales, later to become Edward VII. This tradition would follow with every monarch since, right up to the current Queen. The products supplied to Buckingham Palace he cleverly labelled the Royal Household. Buchanan's enormous success and popularity with nobility worldwide was further embellished when in 1901, after the death of Victoria, Edward VII sent his son, the Duke of York, on a royal trade mission around the world. His choice of Scotch to entertain his distinguished guests in ports of call? Buchanan's Royal Household. Always a keen deal maker, in 1915 Buchanan merged his company with a competitor to form Scotch Whisky Brands Limited, which later merged with Distillers Company Limited, the forerunner of Diageo. In 1920, in recognition of his achievements as a Scotch whisky pioneer and exporter extraordinaire, James Buchanan was honoured by the King with a knighthood. And just 2 years later, he received a peerage, taking the title of Lord Woollavington of Lavington, named after his magnificent country estate and the site of his beloved horse farm. This new status entitled him to a seat in the House of Lords, the upper chamber of the government he had first been a mere vendor to. He was now a part of the establishment, the aristocracy, and the very government itself. He took for his noble coat of arms the phrase Clarior Hinc Spiritus, meaning hence the brighter spirit. Years later, he put this same engraving on his bottles of whiskey, confident that the high quality of the product would lift the spirits of all who drank it.
Sometimes I marvel at the supreme self-confidence that upheld me. A young man without capital and practically no knowledge of the business I was embarking in. A stranger, too, amongst strangers in the great city of London. The extraordinary thing is that the possibility of failure never once occurred to me.
Buchanan enjoyed life right till the end. The day before his death in 1935, he was taken on a stretcher to the races where he entertained friends and watched his horses compete. When he died at age 85, his estate was worth more than £7.5 million. He left money to people from all walks of life and took care of those who had served him faithfully, leaving many pensions and endowments. His family was bequeathed and today still runs the horse farm that he loved so much. While James Buchanan is best remembered for the whisky that bears his name, during his lifetime he was equally well known for his charitable deeds. Some of his most prominent acts of philanthropy include providing hospital beds for the poor at London's Middlesex Hospital, numerous animal welfare causes, and funding the restoration of St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. It was in honour of a life well lived and the legacy of royal household that in 2005, Master Blender Maureen Robinson dug deep into the blending notes and personal archives of James Buchanan to create Buchanan's Red Seal. Recreating blending techniques used by Buchanan during the golden age of Scotch making, Red Seal is a testament to the skill, craftsmanship, and attention to detail that James Buchanan endowed in every drop of his precious liquids. Today, the life, legacy, and philanthropy of James Buchanan are celebrated in Buchanan's Forever, featuring top artists of the day, echoing the music hall days of the Edwardian era. His commitment to good deeds continues in Learning for Life and all that Buchanan's does to enrich the lives of those in need. And his exquisite taste and love for Scotch whisky endure in every bottle of Buchanan's Red Seal. He made friends wherever he went, and not one person had anything but good to say of him. His friends described him as never having taken an unfair advantage of anybody and always ready to help those in trouble or difficulty. He was a great gentleman, a loyal, staunch, and devoted friend. His great pleasure in life was try to give happiness and enjoyment to his innumerable friends.